So when did you get your CDL?
March of 2016.
I'm Sterling.
I'm Harrison.
And this is Hard on the Paint by Big Country Equipment.
And what prompted you to do that? You're just like, man, I love trucks? Or
No, not even close. I've always loved trucks, but I never wanted to drive one. I was in the oil field. I went in the oil field right out of high school. And I was working for this mom and pop company in Alice, Texas. And I'm working my ass off, right? And it's 2016, that's when stuff started crashing. People were getting laid off, and companies are shutting down. But we're booming, we're running. And I did a job that weekend. It was February 1st, 2016, I believe it was a Monday. I go in that Monday morning, and they're like, Carlos Lopez, come to the office. I'm like, I'm about to get a raise. I've been busting my buns. And they're like, hey, man, we have to let you go. I'm like, and I wasn't even upset because I hated that job and I wanted to quit, but I felt disrespectful. See my buddies get laid off, lose their jobs, and they're worried about how they're going to feed their families.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm going to quit my job because I don't like it.
Yeah.
Right.
That was my mentality at the time. So when they let me go, it was like, what? I was like, oh, you know what? I got up, shook their hands. Thank you for the experience. I appreciate it. I'll turn my uniforms in later. I was kind of happy. And I found myself in Corpus Christi, Texas at the community. There's a Del Mar Community College. And I ran into their transportation office. And I walked in there. I didn't know what I wanted to ask. I just walked in to see what they had to offer. And they're like, if you want a CDL, it's going to cost, I think it was like $5,500. You have three options: pay cash, get a student loan, or qualify for a grant. I was like, well, I don't want to spend, I just lost my job this morning. I don't want to spend $5,500 on a gamble, as far as I know.
Yeah.
I won't qualify for a grant because up till this morning I've had a full-time job, and I don't want to go into debt with the student loan. So I'm like, the same for me. I go home. I went to H-E-B, bought some meat and beer. I was about to light the pit, and kind of enjoy the rest of my day. Phone rings. It was the office lady, the secretary. Hey, is this Carlos? I'm like, yes, ma'am. She's like, I got an opportunity in here. I can't tell you over the phone, but if you come in here, you won't regret it. And this is in Kingsville, Texas. I live in Kingsville at the time, so about 45 minutes from Corpus Christi. So I run over there, and I walk in, and I'm like, all right, here's the deal. The state of Texas sponsored, I think it was 30 people. So the state of Texas, along with the University of Texas of Arlington, at Arlington, sponsored 30 people in the state of Texas to pay for the CDL. We already chose it. This has been going on for 6 months. We already chose everybody. But this morning, right after you left, somebody called and dropped out. Said, I don't want to do it. So we have one spot to fill. We think you are the guy for that. And I guess I left a good enough impression while I was in there talking to them. Yeah. They're like, call that kid back. So I was like, what do I got? What do you need from me? And they're like, we just need to do an interview and a drug test. I'm like, cool. Went, got my medical card. And
which one are you worried about not passing?
Can you imagine? Can you imagine? I lit up the pit, lit up something else. They called me back.
Yeah, luckily I hadn't started drinking or nothing. Yeah. So I went and got my medical card. I did my interview, and it was like pretty bad. They knew, like, hey, this is a bullshit interview. We just have to do it to say we did it.
Right.
They're like, why do you want your CDL? And I was like, I don't want to be a bum. Like, I just lost my job. I don't have a job right now. I want a job. That was about it. That's pretty much how that went. So I took the rest of the week off, started class the next Monday, passed everything first try. I mean, it was like it was meant to be. When I got behind the wheel of the truck, everything made sense. I've driven trucks and trailers before.
Do you feel like it was like God's divine plan for you at that time? Or
everything is, so it turned out to be. I didn't know it, and I didn't question it, whatever. Just I think you always end up where you need to be when you need to be there. So when you miss out on something goes bad,
right.
You weren't meant to be, you missed a meeting or you missed something, like, hey, you ever heard the burnt toast theory or whatever?
Right.
Like,
you were late because, 9/11's tomorrow.
Yeah.
There's so many stories about guys that got fired the day before or, exactly. That was late, missed his bus, overslept and was supposed to be in the Twin Towers.
Yeah.
That burnt toast theory is, I think, somewhat real.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'm not the most religious person you ever meet, but I feel like there's some kind of higher power there that
some validity to it.
Yeah, for sure. I don't have the answer. I can't confidently say I know everything happened that people say happened or whatever. But there is something working there, and I feel like that was God's working for me, and I ended up being where I needed to be, and I got my CDL 3 weeks after I lost my job, maybe 4 weeks after I lost my job. Started hauling produce from Mexico to New Jersey every week for like 7 months, and so like I didn't want to get into trucking, but it found me, and I got into hauling produce with these Mexicans out of the valley, South Texas, and those dudes drive old school, like paper logs, and I mean they're
hard workers too.
48-hour service. You load your produce, and within 48 hours, it's in New Jersey.
It's like milk hauling.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
It was pretty rough as a kid. I was 21 years old, had no experience.
Were any of those produce reefers?
Yeah, all reefer.
They were all in the reefers.
When I say haul reefer, people look at me funny, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was hauling reefer for like 7 months, and
better than saying you're hauling grass.
Yeah, right. And that was my introduction to trucking. Was kind of outlaw style, rewriting your books and keeping it
running
rolling.
2 logs.
No, so I've always ran a loose leaf paper log. So there was imagine a binder with your log sheets in it. So back then you learn how to make that work.
Right.
And that's what we did. Or that's how I learned.
Hypothetically.
I thought that's how everybody did it. Right. So I get to trucking that way. And then this horse hauling company from Pennsylvania finds me or whatever. They hired me as a kid. And they're like, we don't hire kids, but the boss wants to take a chance on you. I'm like, all right, let's do it. I love horses. I love trucks. Let's combine the two, In theory, it worked, sounded pretty good.
Yeah.
It was. Changed my life. And so I go to work for them, and they run legit. They run, like, logs the way you're supposed to run them. And I was like, yeah, just...
This was kind of the intro to E-Log.
This was before E-Logs, but yeah. This was a time when they were trying to...
Introduce it,
yeah. So we were still running paper logs, but there it was a log book where it was all connected.
Right.
So I'm like, oh yeah, you just rip this out, and they're like, no. I'm like, what do you mean? You don't need, I'm over here showing them what I know. They're like, we don't do that here. I'm like, oh, my bad.
You're professional.
Yeah, because I'm like, I could run 1,500 miles overnight. They're like, no, that takes 2 people, and you do it in this amount of time. I'm like, oh, I mean, I guess you could if you wanted to. Yeah, that's how I started trucking.
Oh, but dang.
You just didn't have the taste for meth to get into cowpox.
You know what's funny? I feel like such a dumbass. I'm so unaware about stuff. When I was running with those Mexicans, they were doing drugs. I didn't know until after the fact, but they were doing drugs. So I'm driving with these guys that are like on meth or coke or whatever they're doing, stimulants they're doing.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm not doing anything. I don't even drink coffee. I'm just running like a fucking animal, And
you're like, why are they sniffling so much?
I didn't question it because I'm like, well, as far as I know,
Maybe they're just good at their job.
Or
yeah,
they're
right.
cold.
They're used to it or whatever.
Well, that was my introduction to trucking. So I'm like, well, this is how it's supposed to be done. You're supposed to run 2,400 miles in 48 hours. Like, that's just what you do.
Right.
And then little did I know, like, no, dude, they're doing meth. I'm like, what? They do meth? Or whatever they're doing, And I was running with those guys. We're on CB, and I thought they just didn't speak English very well, but they're on drugs.
Oh, man. That is crazy. That entire... I always find that super interesting how people's journeys and paths get them to places.
Yeah.
I bet you've seen a lot of country doing that. And
been
almost every state, probably.
I've been all 48.
48.
I've hauled horses to all 48
Which one's
states.
the prettiest?
I'm always going to say Texas. Come on, bro.
I like that.
Forever. Do you remember?
The Alamo?
That's right.
That was my Instagram. My Instagram has been Texas forever for like 15 years or however long Instagram's been around until recently.
Was that Kevin Fowler that sings that song?
I don't know. But I had to change my Instagram to Carlos Lopez Comedy just
Yeah.
because
represent.
Well, the original quote's Davy Crockett. I'm Sterling.
I'm Harrison.
And this is Hard on the Paint by Big Country Equipment.